Mara Rivera reached the Buchanan Street docking station 3 minutes before her 8:05 a.m. meeting, the usual commuter jitters buzzing in her calves. She swore the blue and silver bikes of the Ferry Wheel program were getting lighter each month, as if the company shaved off grams in secret, while her phone pinged its "Thank you for riding with us" notification. She noticed a quick flicker of green flame inside the vacant dock beside hers. A match head flare, there and gone. Electrical short, she told herself. Maybe a faulty LED. Still, she bent down, pushed her knuckles against the slot, and felt no residual heat. Only a breeze kissed her hand, cool and smelling faintly of lilac, even though Buchanan reeked of car exhaust. Strange, but she had an agenda revision to pitch, and a boss who judged tardiness like a moral failing. Mara shrugged, tapped her helmet, and sprinted towards City Hall. By afternoon, the flicker was forgotten, buried under spreadsheets of neighborhood transit data, and a half hour of listening to the commissioner boast about the gentrification of mobility as though it were a good thing. She imagined slugging him with a U-lock. Instead, she smiled, took notes, and promised to prepare visuals. Weeks passed. She kept noticing things. A fine luminescence around the dock clamps, spokes that chimed like glass, shadows in her peripheral vision that looked like other cyclists but vanished when she turned her head. Colleagues teased her about working too hard, so she laughed and pretended the commute was nothing but endorphins and weather apps. Inside, curiosity gnawed. On the first Wednesday in May, Mara's after-work ride was stopped short by police tape. A water main had burst 2 blocks from her usual route, rerouting traffic into a snarl. Her mapping app suggested a detour through Hillhurst Alley, a cobblestone lane she'd never biked. The sun was sliding behind the courthouse, staining the city amber, and the air smelled of spring storms. She hesitated only a second, then unlocked a ferry wheel. Hillhurst Alley was steeper than it looked on the screen. Mara's breath grew tight, thighs burning. Halfway up, thunder rumbled. She pushed harder. When she crested the slope, lightning traced a lattice across the clouds. Except she realized the light wasn't above. It was beneath her. The bike frame glowed cobalt. Thread-thin filaments of light leapt from the spokes into the cobblestones, sketching a rune circle that pulsed under the front tire. The docking clamp on the handlebar, a weird piece she'd never noticed before, clicked open like a metal flower, and the street flipped. Not physically. One moment she was riding a hill of old bricks, and the next, gravity tilted. The alley elongated into a silver tunnel lined with blooming hawthorn. The bricks sank, became mirror obsidian. Wind howled, full of shrill laughter. Mara's back wheel fishtailed. She tried to brake, but the lever was gone. Her hands clutched polished antler instead of handlebars, and her feet, still on pedals, spun without resistance. Speed increased, vision streaking, until a gate of living vines appeared, yawning wide. She shot through. The bike coasted to a halt on moss that shimmered navy in the starless dark. Above her, gaslight globes floated like jellyfish tethered to nothing. Structures of twisted brass rose and curved, overlapping like bones of an enormous ribcage. At the center of the cavernous court was a fountain shaped as a 3-wheeled bicycle, water sluicing where chains ought to be. The spray smelled of crushed mint. Mara dismounted slowly, heart clattering in her ears. Behind her, the vine gate had sealed, no sign of Hillhurst Alley or city asphalt. She unbuckled her helmet and clutched it like a weapon. "Well, mortal transit is punctual tonight," a voice drawled. A woman lounged on a bench of braided ivy. She wore a jacket sewn from peacock feathers, each eye blinking independently. Where her legs should have ended in boots, they tapered into hooves of hammered bronze. A ring of street sign tokens, stop, one way, yield, circled her antlered brow. Faye, Mara's mind supplied, her childhood folklore, condensed into this terrifyingly casual shape. Where am I?" Mara said. "Border station, Pillar Court," the woman answered, rising and clicking her hooves on the moss. "Elegant bit of docking engineering, isn't it? Though personally, I miss the horse troughs. I want to go home." "Naturally," the Fae nodded, "but you slipped through while the turnpike's in flux, and exits are currently blockaded. War, you understand." "War?" The Fae lifted a satchel of parchment maps. She unfurled one. The city Mara knew, except roads were annotated with runes, and bike lanes glowed brighter than freeways. Your mortal planners keep sanding away our older paths, she said, covering ley lines with fiber optic nonsense, luring dreamers with breakfast burritos. Pillar Court's dominion over the east side was ceded centuries ago on condition we retain the cycle lines. Now, this gentrified corridor project of yours, steel planters, coffee kiosks, chokes the magic. Pavement suffocates song, so of course our cousins in the Thorn Court snipe at us while the asphalt's wet. Mara's brain stuck on a single phrase. My project? She was on the transit team that green-lighted the redevelopment. She'd lobbied for buffered bike lanes precisely to keep marginalized cyclists safe, and yeah, the corridor stitched between new high-rent lofts. Was her good intention a colonial incursion to the Fae? I'm Mara, transportation analyst, she said. Azabel, geographer of Pillar, the Fae replied, offering her wrist instead of a hand, pulse warm, like molten glass. You're the first mortal citizen to arrive uninvited in decades. That makes you diplomat by default. Congratulations. Mara nearly laughed. Absolutely not. Too late. You crossed a threshold freely. Old law binds you. Look, Mara breathed. My city needs those lanes. People get hit by cars daily. Your people, our people travel differently. Azabel gestured to the fountain bike. Cycling balances the blood of the earth. Pedals turn against time. Mortals charging per minute on a smartphone. Well, it pinches. If you want safe streets, so do we. But the Thorn Court claims Pillar exploits them, and your fancy lane bollards have become casus belli. The brass ribs arching overhead trembled. A distant horn blew, mournful. Azabel exhaled. That would be them now. Escorted by two gnome-sized sentries riding folding scooters, Mara was hustled through corridors of knotted route into a council chamber. Glimmering skylights revealed no sky, only swirling city maps tattooed on the stone. Representatives of Pillar sat at one long side, sprites with reflectors for wings, a dryad wearing reflective tape as a sash, a Kenku mechanic oiling a chain with moonlight. On the opposite bench lounged the Thorn Court, slender figures in ripped courier bags, helmet plumage dyed neon, their garments woven from caution tape. At the head, in a dais shaped like a roundabout, sat an androgynous monarch with a chrome crown. Half their face gleamed silver, half matte black, like a tire skid. They watched Mara with detached curiosity. Azabel announced, I present Mara Rivera, mortal commuter. She binds the rideshare contract. A murmur scurried through the hall. Explain, the monarch said. Azabel bowed. Her mortal firm, Metrolink, partners with Ferry Wheel. Their docks anchor our gates. Mortal feet set the pattern. Fae Energy rides the wake. She is effectively co-proprietor of the lanes under dispute. Mara almost corrected that, but the royal gaze pinned her. You stand upon contested soil, the monarch said. Your iron paint stripes strangle our song lines. Thorn riders sabotage docks. Pillar weavers reroute traffic. It escalates. Soon echo rifles, later famine. Mortals will feel only potholes and PR fiasco. Yet war will roar beneath. They leaned forward. We require arbitration. You shall broker. But I'm no diplomat. I barely slept last night, Mara protested. Incapable or unwilling? The monarch asked softly. Mortal governance decrees cannot see us. You, at least, acknowledge. Her chest thumped. She remembered the commissioner bragging about gentrification. She remembered the undocumented kids in her old neighborhood who relied on bikes because bus passes required paperwork. She remembered the city claiming equity while bulldozing gardens for parking garages. She'd tried to fight that hypocrisy, but mostly she made maps. Maybe this was her chance to draw a bolder one. I'll listen, Mara said. The monarch nodded. An envoy who listens is Pearl. Pillar's side argued first. The buffered lanes channeled energy smoothly until mortal designers planned to widen curbs for boutique patios, slicing the lay path so customers could sip lattes. Thorn couriers, who thrived on raw flow, would be forced onto dangerous vehicular roads of mortal sorrow, starving magic. Thorn retorted, Pillar's glowing fountains leached vitality and hoarded it for their gilded moss estates, leaving outer districts hollow. They displayed a cracked earth core crystal as evidence of deprivation. Mara listened, scribbling notes on enchanted parchment that translated their metaphors. Bloodline of asphalt, breath of wheel, hunger of cul-de-sac. She saw parallels to mortal inequality churning her own city. Negotiations stalled when a sprite accused Thorn of slashing dock beacons to conjure potholes. Thorn responded by flipping the table, literally. Chairs sprouted thorns, vines whipped up. Azabel herded Mara behind a pillar just as the chamber erupted into a two-wheeled melee. A satyr launched a penny farthing like a discus. Neon-haired thorn riders deflected with messenger bags hardened into kite shields. Mara peeked out, heart hammering. She saw the monarch watching, head tilted, curious, patient, not intervening, as though chaos was step 3 in an ancient ritual. The simplicity appalled her. She sprinted into the fray. "Stop!" she yelled, voice cracking. Nobody heard over clash and shriek, so she triggered the docking beacon. Every ferry wheel had a bell shaped like a tiny orbit. It pinged upon locking. Mara grabbed a nearby sprite's comm wheel, pressed its ivory button, and the court filled with a crystalline ding loud enough to split minds. Combat froze. Faces turned to her, some furious, some bemused. "I have a proposal," she said, lungs blazing. "Give me a bike and a map. I'll ride the disputed lanes. Show me the bottlenecks. Let me design a route that nourishes both courts and protects mortal commuters. You come too, ambassador from Pillar, ambassador from Thorn. We ride together, we see together." A silence stretched. Then the monarch smiled, the black tire half of their face widening slightly. A trial by circuit. Old as gravel. Approved. Dawn prickled the horizon when Mara positioned herself at a real-world dock on 8th and Larch, identical to the one that had swallowed her. On either side, fey glamour made Thorn and Pillar companions nearly invisible to mortal passers-by, just trickles of shadow. Azabel's reflective feathers dimmed into gray. Thorn's envoy, a lank courier named Briar, disguised as a bored teen with mismatched wheels. The monarch had gifted them a timer, a dial of revolving moons that would judge if equilibrium returned by dusk. Mara tugged her jacket tight. "Ground rules," she said. "No sabotage while we ride. No illusions on the bike path. Mortals off limits." Briar smirked. "I can't promise we won't heckle SUVs." "Allowed," Mara said, mounting her bike. She inhaled city smells. Diesel, bakery yeast, wet concrete. The fey companions breathed like newcomers tasting air. They pedaled. First stop. The new Market Square Promenade. Outdoor tables overrunning the bike lane forced cyclists into traffic. Azabel visibly winced. The lay current there hiccuped like a skipped record. Briar kicked a planter in disdain. "Both mortal and fey flow are getting pinched," Mara noted. "I can convince the city to narrow patios if we propose alternate seating on the rooftops." "Need energy anchors," Azabel said. She indicated lampposts. "We could weave memory lights, stories of former residents to ground roots." "Community art project," Mara translated. She marked it. They continued south, where lane striping faded near an abandoned factory. Thorn magic surged raw. Briar rode faster, sparks trailing his back wheel. Azabel lagged, feathers drooping. Conflict evident. Mara saw what numbers on a screen never showed. Kids playing soccer in the street because parks were gone. An elder pushing a cart along cracked sidewalk. She envisioned a protected greenway, financed by taxing the Lux condos up corridor. She sketched on her phone. Azabel offered to seed dream willows that purified smog. Briar pledged Thorn couriers to patrol at night, warding against predatory cops. At noon, they reached the waterfront viaduct project, Mara's pride and future shame. Construction had demolished the old pier, and heavy trucks quaked overhead. The ley line here was almost severed. Mara felt a hollow in her chest, as if her lungs forgot rhythm. Briar spat on the rebar. Azabel shed a feather that dissolved into dust. Mara dismounted and climbed rubble to look across the water. "A cycle bridge," she murmured. "Car-free, could restore the line." "Mortals won't fund," Azabel said. "They will if funding appears in the capital improvement portal," Mara replied. She'd learned plenty about budget line sneaks. But we need a spark. Thorn thrives on raw flux, Pillar on harmony. Fuse them? Briar bared teeth. A stunt ride. Midnight mass across the unfinished span, thousands of mortal cyclists. Thorn will supply adrenaline. Azabel nodded slowly. Pillar will tune the resonance, mold temporary boards into spirit planks. Mara's pulse raced. She realized she was improvising revolution, and loving it. They spent the afternoon drafting. Where asphalt gaped, Briar carved symbols. Azabel filled grooves with bioluminescent sap. Mara documented GPS coordinates, penciled grant notes, texted her colleague Gita for CAD mock-ups. Trust me, big reveal soon. The timer dial in her backpack ticked silently. At sunset, they returned to the original dock. The city glowed pink, traffic hummed. Mara locked her bike. The beacon chimed. The monarch awaited, half concealed in shadow. With them stood officials from both courts, some bandaged from the earlier fray. The monarch's eyes shifted from Azabel to Briar to Mara. "Report," they intoned. Briar spoke first, voice uncharacteristically soft. "The mortal sees the veins we ride. She can route energy properly." Azabel added, "She binds Thorn's fire to Pillar's pattern. The design satisfies old strictures." Mara offered the parchment map, now layered with mortal ink and fey sigil. Implement pilot changes by solstice. If metrics, air quality, accident rate, metaphysical pulse show improvement, we phase 2. Meanwhile, call off sabotage. Whispers rippled. A satyr cleared his throat skeptically, but the monarch raised a hand. The dial in Mara's pack glowed. Moons aligned. A chime like city bells drowned traffic noise. "Equilibrium restores," the monarch declared. "War recesses." Relief sagged Mara's shoulders. She half expected confetti. But the monarch continued, gaze settling on her. "You, Mara Rivera, are named Keeper of the Crosswalk. Walk both realms, maintain accord. Decline, and the lanes crumble again." Mara swallowed. 2 jobs, 2 worlds, 1 exhausted millennial. Yet, the idea sparked joy. "I'll keep the lanes," she said. The monarch smiled. They snapped their fingers, and a token appeared in Mara's palm, a transit pass glowing ultramarine, embossed with the symbol of overlapping wheels. "Present this at any ferry wheel dock, and paths open." Back in her apartment at 2 a.m., Mara sat on the windowsill, token gleaming in moonlight. Emails pinged on her phone, Gita demanding explanations, the commissioner praising her hasty proposal that somehow leaked and delighted the mayor, Ferry Wheel requesting imagery for a social campaign. She chuckled. Tomorrow would be chaos. She thought of Briar's sparks, Azabel's feather eyes, of kids playing soccer in the street, of her childhood bike, rusted, stolen when condos swallowed her block. She thought of riding a midnight mass across a half-built bridge that sang beneath its steel. Mara tucked the token into her helmet, leaned it by the door, and slept. The pilot launched a month later. Rooftop patios received tax credits, ground lanes cleared, dream willows sprouted overnight, their leaves whispering old barrio songs. Thorn couriers supervised the ride, neon streamers blazing. Pillar curators programmed lampposts to flicker stories of displaced families rescued from oblivion. Mara rode at the front, helmet lights blinking code only Faye could read. News crews captured the wonder, a living river of cyclists gliding where trucks once thundered. Twitter hailed it, Cyclovia of the century. The commissioner preened. The mayor vowed replication. Nobody noticed the faint antlered silhouettes guiding the procession from rooftops. Mid-bridge, Mara glimpsed the monarch perched on a suspension cable, chrome crown reflecting starlight. They raised 2 fingers in salute. She rang her bell. The wheel turns, she thought. And beneath the tires, unseen but felt, ancient roads thrummed, carrying all riders, mortal and fey, into a dawn where paths belonged to everyone who dared to pedal.